Baseball is back, and the first pitch is on Netflix. The New York Yankees, led by 7-time All-Star Aaron Judge, head to the San Francisco Bay to take on Rafael Devers' San Francisco Giants. This season kicks off with one exclusive opening night game. Watch MLB Opening Night, the New York Yankees versus the San Francisco Giants, live on Netflix. Wednesday, March 25th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hello, folks. I'm Larry Kudlow, and it's great to be with you today. Plenty to talk about, covering the war, covering the markets, covering the Fed. Lots of news, as always. By the way, you can hear us. You can get us over the Internet, live stream us over the Internet. Listen to us, LarryKudlowShow.com, LarryKudlowShow.com. You can hear us all across the country, around the globe, throughout the solar system, including the Milky Way. And please visit us during the week, Fabulous Fox Business Network, FBN, every day at 4 o'clock, 4 to 5 p.m. The name of the show is Kudlow. And if you can't make it at 4, for heaven's sakes, just text your favorite 9-year-old. Just text your favorite 9-year-old, and she will show you how to DVR the show. You'll never miss a thing. And there's a lot not to be missed. We are about the midpoint of the war, according to President Trump, who said 4 to 6 weeks. We're finished with week 3. He texted Truth Social, worth reading if you hadn't seen it. Texted it last night. We're getting very close to meeting our objectives as we consider winding down our great military efforts in the Middle East with respect to the terrorist regime of Iran. First, completely degrading Iranian missile capability, launchers, and everything else pertaining to them. Second, destroying Iran's defense industrial base. Third, eliminating their Navy and Air Force, including anti-aircraft weaponry. Fourth, never allowing Iran to get even close to nuclear capability, and always being in a position where the USA can quickly and powerfully react to such a situation should it ever take place. Fifth, protecting at the highest level our Middle Eastern allies, including Israel, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, and others. And then he goes on to say the Hormuz Strait will have to be guarded and policed as necessary by other nations who use it. The U.S. does not. But if asked, we will help these countries in their Hormuz efforts, but it shouldn't be necessary once Iran's threat is eradicated. Importantly, it will be an easy military operation for them. Thank you for the attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Now, I think some people are misinterpreting. He's not saying he's leaving. It's not over. He said we're winding down. It's week 3 of an incredibly successful military operation. Epic Fury. Epic Fury. Basically, Iran is a defenseless country. And on top of that, the Israelis are knocking out their leaders one by one. I don't know how many now, 50, 60, including some of the worst, Bouroudjian, who was the head of state security, the murderer of some 40,000 Iranian dissidents. Actually, I don't even call them dissidents. Iranians, people normal human beings who object to the killing and death of their own people by most awful regime imaginable. But there is more work to be done, and it's being done. There's Marine expeditionary forces that are headed toward the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. We will reopen the Strait of Hormuz very soon. The American forces, they have to do things one thing at a time, and they have their priorities. And it looks like now that's the direction they're going in. So we'll get safe passage of all these oil tankers, take the pressure off world oil prices. We don't have an oil shortage, by the way. We don't have a natural gas shortage. None of the above. The United States doesn't really need the Gulf of Hormuz. I mean, we are self-sufficient. We are energy independent. We are energy dominant. We are the biggest producers of oil and natural gas. But, yes, our friends in the Middle East, the Gulf states, need it. The Europeans need it. The Europeans kind of useless, aren't they, really? Some of them finally came around, say, okay, we're with you. We're with you, although they haven't done anything as far as I know. I mean, I could spend a lot of time on that. Maybe we will over the course of the show. Robert O'Brien will be here, great national security advisor and analyst. General Keane will be here at the half hour to bring us up to speed on all things, all the major developments in the war. But we're not leaving yet. I think some people want to believe that we're leaving, but we're not. We're not at all. And then, of course, you have all this terrible newspaper coverage. I mean, I deal with the Wall Street Journal. Oh, my God. Conservative paper. It used to be a conservative editorial page, although it has Trump derangement syndrome on some parts of the editorial page, but they are favoring the war. But one of the lead stories is Iran sees an opening to control Mideast energy over the long run. What a lot of crap that is. Honest to God. Honestly. What? I don't even want to talk about it. Media, the legacy media, is basically trying to tell you for the last 3 weeks that the United States is losing the war. I mean, that's basically what their position is. Remarkable. It couldn't be further. I mean, Iran has been destroyed. They're completely defenseless. Their leadership is gone. And if President Trump chooses to, we can take them out of Karg Island and all of their oil exports and natural gas exports, and then they will have nothing left. Their economic epicenter can be removed. We hit the military bases in Karg Island, destroyed them. He can destroy the pipes if he wants to. And it may come to that if Iran is stubbornly clinging to their defense. But to say that, to paint a picture that the Iranians see an opening to control Mideast energy, they don't have an opening to control anything, period. End of sentence, full stop. Let's be serious about this. Now, one thing I want to tackle, and we'll do it over the course of the show. But the next big thing, at least on the ground, okay, the Pentagon, War Secretary Pete Hegseth, the Joint Chiefs, CENTCOM, and so forth. Pentagon needs more money to conduct this war, keep our military mighty, and it looks like they will be coming in with a $200 billion request. Keep the military tip-top shape. Complete the mission in Iran. Maintain President Trump's policy of peace through strength. Okay, we need some money. Now, this is going to be a battle. You can bet the Democrats will oppose the extra money because they oppose the war. They will use this war financing request for all of their anti-war propaganda. They'll try and block it. All right? They're going to try to block this crucial funding bill. Okay? Their argument, there's no imminent danger. There's no imminent risk. That's their argument. Nonsense. I mean, really, we've been through this. Let's just review for one moment. When Steve Witkoff, our Mideast envoy, smart guy, friend, he and Jared Kushner, dear Jared, friend, when those two came back from the last Iranian meeting and narrated what Iran told them, Iran bragging of their nuclear capabilities. No imminent threat, really. Okay, so Witkoff related that the Iranians told him they had 460 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium. 460 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium. Now, that ended the talks because we don't want them to have any nuclear capability whatsoever. And they're bragging how close they are. Now, the thing is, if you're at 60% enrichment, you can bring it up to 90% in 7 to 10 days. That's the deal. That's science. And that 460 kilograms of enriched uranium would be enough to create 11 nuclear bombs. That's how close Iran is. 11 nuclear bombs from the 460 kilograms of enriched uranium. 60% goes to 90 fast. And then you can say, well, they don't have the intercontinental missiles. By the way, there's a story in the New York Post today, a very important story, that it looks like we've underestimated, once again, their missile power because they can hit Diego Garcia, the air base in the Indian Ocean. They can hit that. You know what? They're not far from hitting the middle west of the United States or the east coast of the United States. I mean, Democrats just will do anything to avoid war because their presidents, Obama and Biden, failed to stop Iran. And let's not forget, Iran's 47-year war against the United States, right? Let's not forget that since 1983, the State Department, U.S. State Department, no great warrior there, but the U.S. State Department has labeled Iran the world's greatest state sponsor of terrorism. Let's not forget their hatred for the United States, the big Satan, or their hatred for Israel, the little Satan. Right now they have the capabilities to nuke Israel. They can nuke the Gulf states, Sunni Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, etc. Hit the underbelly of Europe. That's how evil they are. That's why Mr. Trump had to do what he had to do. And it's been a brilliant military operation. That's why, finally, let me say, there's $200 billion request, $200 billion request for the Pentagon to continue the war, to continue America's military might, and to continue the policy of peace through strength. This must go through. Now, let me say this. There's only one way, tactically, this can be done. Through the budget process called reconciliation, which is a fiscal approach, fiscal policy approach, and you only need 50 votes plus the vice president. So it's 51 votes. Because you're not going to get 60 votes, because you're not going to find any Democrats with the possible exception of Mr. Fetterman of Pennsylvania. My hat's off to him. But in order to give the Pentagon what it needs, you're going to have to use reconciliation. And that requires only 51 votes. That would be 50 Republicans plus the Veep to break the tie if need be. The House is going in this direction. Speaker Johnson already knows this, understands this. House Budget Chair Jody Arrington, similarly. The Senate leadership has no appetite for it yet, but they're going to have to. They're going to have to. Because it's so important. The GOP cannot lose this debate, and they cannot lose the $200 billion. It is so crucial. In the middle of a war, the Democrats will oppose all of it. But the country is with Mr. Trump, and the country knows that Iran's nuclear capability and their terrorist capabilities must be stopped. Now, this is the moment. We'll talk some more about this issue and the possibility that the Save America Voting Rights Bill can get into that reconciliation package as well. I've had a lot of experience with my government service down through the years. But I open with this notion. We are doing fabulously well, but the Pentagon needs a couple of $100 billion more. They must get it. Democrats are whistling through the graveyard. Republicans have to get ready for a tough battle, but it must be done. Reconciliation bill is the only way to keep our military great and our democracy indestructible. And the funding will complete the mission in Iran, and it will uphold Trump's policy of peace through strength. I'm Kudlow. We'll take a quick break.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Two other points. By the way, General Jack Keane will be here at the half hour. The brilliant General Jack Keane, who has been so totally right before and during this Iranian war. But I just want to mention, we talk reconciliation, which requires 50 votes, 51 with the vice president. That's what the Republicans will need to get the $200 billion of defense money. You need the $200 billion. Okay, let's complete the war. Let's complete the mission. Peace through strength. You could also conceivably put a Voting Rights Act in there, okay, because it's going to take money to implement national rules for voting rights and citizenship and so forth. We'll talk more about that over the course of the show. But it's an important point. You got to think creatively. And I've been through so many of these reconciliation bills. The other thing I want to say is this: Jay Powell, the Federal Reserve Chairman, thinks he's going to barricade himself into the bathroom of the Fed so he can be chairman for life. And that is a really bad idea, and we'll talk about that as well. I'm Kudlow. General Keane coming up after the break.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
It's a big story in the Wall Street Journal, and we'll get our guest to comment on this. General Keane will comment on this, but Iran apparently fired 2 ballistic missiles at our base in Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, 2,500 miles away. And that is much longer, apparently, than people anticipated. They thought the limit was about 1,250 miles away. So there you go. It's just what I was talking about at the opening. Democrats may deny it, but they are an immediate threat. Anyway, it is with great pleasure we welcome back General Jack Keane, who's a retired 4-star general. He's the chairman of the Institute for the Study of War. He's a Fox News senior strategic analyst. He is a Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient. I was in the room when he got it. General Keane, sir, thank you, as always, for helping us on the radio and on the TV show, by the way.
Delighted to be here, Larry.
Yes, sir. This article in the Journal this morning, 2 Iranian ballistic missiles were fired at the Diego Garcia base, American base. Don't know if they hit. I think one did not hit, and one may have been intercepted. It's not clear from the article. But the bigger point is it's in the Indian Ocean, 2,500 miles away. They may have more missile power length than we thought. Another reason to be very concerned about Iran.
Yeah, well, I know sometimes people in the media and people that don't want the United States to intervene in anything can be a little tone deaf. But what precipitated this incursion that we're doing right now was the result after the 12-day war, Larry, when obviously the Iranians were set back quite significantly by the Israelis for most of that, and then we set back their nuclear program. But the Israelis set back their ballistic missile program, their drones, other capabilities, stripped them of their air defense systems, etc. But immediately after that, intelligence services began to realize that the Iranians were not going to change at all. If anything, they were more committed than ever. They began to build underground storage sites to project their ballistic missiles, and the numbers were accelerating. China was helping them, and they were increasing the range of the ballistic missiles and also attempting to develop an intercontinental ballistic missile, which obviously could reach the United States, much as North Korea has done, and that's another supporter of what the Iranians are doing. The Iranians know how to build rockets and missiles themselves, but the North Koreans are ahead of them in terms of the range of these weapon systems. And after all, these are their allies and partners. And the degree and zealotry that they had about that, plus they were attempting to recover their nuclear program. And the third thing they were doing is funding the proxies again. So they made there was no setback in their minds. If anything, they doubled down after the 12-day war to fully commit to return to where they were and extend the envelope. So, yes, the fact that they can shoot a ballistic missile 2,500 miles, I don't think is a surprise to our intelligence services, and that missile could obviously reach into Europe. And we know for a fact that they were attempting to develop intercontinental ballistic missiles, which would be obviously an existential threat to the United States if it involved a nuclear weapon. So, yeah, this is all real. This is taking place, and this is the reason why the president made the decision with Prime Minister Netanyahu to take away this offensive capability they have, strip them of it entirely, and why the Israelis are going one step further, Larry, and strip down the organizations that sustain the regime, the infamous IRGC, the Bazid militia, killing not only their leaders at the top, but hundreds of their enforcers that are on the streets in the various cities today, the law enforcement command and the national police infrastructure. So we are about this every single day, and that is another reminder of why there's complete justification for doing what is taking place in this combined force that Israel and the United States has put together.
Yes, sir. I'm reviewing the justification because we learned later this past week that the War Department is requesting another $200 billion, either for the war or the war, keep our military in tip-top shape, complete the mission in Iran, peace through strength. Hegseth talked about this, Secretary Hegseth, Pete Hegseth. And, you know, you're going to have a difficult fight on the money. Democrats are going to oppose this. And I was opening the show, sir, by reminding the narrative of Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. When they came back from their last meeting with Iran, with the Iran people, you know, Witkoff had a chilling narrative. He said, look, this is 460 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, which could be turned into 90% in 7 to 10 days, according to Witkoff and other analysts. That's how close Iran is to getting a nuclear bomb. And now, you know, reading about today in the paper or online about their delivery systems, the missile delivery systems are better and longer than we thought. I mean, this is going to be a blood and guts battle, which we must win. Republicans must win this. I mean, Democrats can join, but it's only Fetterman from Pennsylvania that seems to have any common sense. So there'll be a reconciliation bill, I presume. That'd be my economic tactic, because that's just 50 votes plus the vice president. But all of this, I guess what I'm saying, General, is let's not forget. Your points just made. Let's not forget about the nuclear threat. Let's not forget about the terrorism threat. Let's not forget about the missile threat. Let's not forget any of it for the last 47 years, making war against the United States and Israel and civilized people. Let's not forget that, because Democrats are going to try to block that. I hate to make this partisan, but what we know, unfortunately, the party over there has changed. So it's the GOP carrying the ball. But these are, we're going to have to. These arguments are crucial. We're going to have to go through it all over again, because the military's got to have what it needs. Right? In my view, give them what they want, General.
Yeah. Well, two thoughts on what you just said. After the 12-day war, and they recognized the path that Iran was on, which was the complete recovery, complete commitment to the return to their ideology. And even though we went out there and tried to negotiate with them, I think the president, in his back of his mind, knew that was a fruitless effort, but he was willing to try it anyway. And what these two leaders came to the conclusion is that this regime is not going to change.
Right.
Even when we punished them in that 12-day war and took their nuclear enterprise down and set it back, they went right back to where they were, fully committed to it. And that was really the catalyst, the fact that the regime is diabolical in its intent. They want to take control of the Middle East. They want to dominate and control it. They want to drive the United States out of there in terms of its influence. These are the objectives they've had for 47 years. And they want to destroy the state of Israel. And by destroy the state of Israel, what they mean by that is make it such a volatile, dynamic situation from a security perspective that the small number of Jews that live in Israel, I mean, it's obviously less than 10 million, somewhere around 8 million, don't want to live there anymore because the risk is too high for their children and their grandchildren. So they have been about this, and those two national leaders came together and said, sooner rather than later, there's no sense waiting for them to recover and be able to do more damage to us when we attack them. Their retaliation capability will be greater. So there was a sense of urgency that we need to do something now, not just in terms of retaliation against what would happen in the Middle East region, but retaliation and prevent them from doing damage out of the region into Europe and into the United States proper itself. And anybody looking at the facts in this can see, yes, is this a war of choice? You betcha it is. But the facts speak for themselves as to why the justification. On the funding thing, so our audience understands, there is no contingency fund in the budget in the event we have to go to war or in the event we have to do some kind of a specialized operation. So we're paying for this out of money that's obviously allocated for other things. And so what the Pentagon is going back to is saying this is what it's costing us, and we want to be reimbursed for this because we're taking it out of operational funds or we're taking it out of potential procurement funds to be able to expend it on this. And that, of course, is a reasonable request given what's happening here. But you're absolutely right. This will come down to a political partisan fight over something that should be blatantly obvious and be supported by the overwhelming members of the House and the Senate. But it likely will be a partisan battle, and that's unfortunate.
Yes, it is. I don't know if you saw, it was a Democrat, no Trump supporter, but I know him, David Boies. He's a famous defense lawyer. David Boies wrote a great piece in the Wall Street Journal, I guess 2 Fridays ago, why there shouldn't be partisanship in this war. And although he devoutly hopes that President Trump and his choice will lose, and he wants a Democrat to win in the 2028 election, nonetheless, David Boies walks through the same points that you just walked through regarding the need to go after Iran on the nuclear issue and on the terrorism issue and so forth and so on. So there was a time in America when we had, Democrat. We had foreign policy stopped at the water's edge. War support always. But those days are gone now. Actually, when I worked for Reagan, I watched a lot of Democrats support Reagan in his fight against communism. But this is a different time, unfortunately, as you point out. I'm just saying, as a matter of tactics, I don't want to bring you in on this, but I worked as a deputy budget director for Reagan, and I worked for I was an NEC director for Mr. Trump 40 years later. Reconciliation's the best way to do this, because it only requires 50 floor votes plus the vice president. And they're not going to get 60 votes to pass this additional war appropriation, but we must pass the appropriation. We must get this through in the middle of this war. And we're going to hear a lot of phony, baloney arguments against it, but we must get it done. General Keane, I guess 1 or 2 Marine expeditionary forces heading for the Persian Gulf. Can you fill in some blanks on that one?
Yeah, that's true, and I think there are plenty of options, for these forces when they arrive. That's for sure. I think, clearly, the adversary has a vote in any war, and what Iran has been able to do with very few resources. I mean, we obviously have taken their Navy away from them, except for some small boats. We've taken their Air Force, which wasn't much, all their air defense systems, the overwhelming majority of their ballistic missiles and drones. But still, with the threat of imposing their will in the Gulf, I think they've hit somewhere in the neighborhood of 15-plus ships over the past few weeks. Didn't necessarily destroy those ships, but set them on fire. And they're jamming their GPS systems, their navigation systems, and also their communication systems. So the merchant community the seagoing merchant community has decided, because of this potential threat, not to go through the Gulf, as we've all been watching now. And we cannot let that stand, quite frankly, because that is something they've always wanted to achieve, Larry, is being able to control the distribution of oil through the Gulf and through the Straits of Hormuz. They tried to do that a couple of times before. We're never able to succeed at it. During Reagan administration, who you were working for in '88, they tried to do it, and we attacked their oil platforms economically, and then attacked them militarily in terms of their small boats and frigates and mine layers, and the problem went away. So we have to address this. There's no doubt about that. We're stripping away certainly all of their offensive capability, but they don't need much to deal with this. I mean, some small boats, that's a threat. The other one are some drones, that's a threat. So they don't need thousands of drones to do this. And then the potential to lay some mines, that's a threat. So despite we're taking everything else away from them, that threat still remains. So I think we have to address it, and there's a number of things and options on the table, and the Marines would contribute to that, as others may contribute to it. But some of the things that we can do and likely are under consideration, one would be stop all the Iranian ships that are going through the Gulf. When they get down further into the Gulf, into the Arabian Sea, grab those ships, quarantine them, and take control of that oil. In other words, we stop them from going through the straits, so that they would open it up for others going through the straits. It's a bargaining chip. Number 2, we have to take control of the Persian Gulf and the Straits of Hormuz militarily, and we're on our way to doing that. We have to dominate it and control it, and that is going to be a must. And then I think number 3, likely under consideration, has been talked about publicly, is Karg Island, which represents 90% of the distribution of oil that comes out of the Iranian oil fields. So we could seize that. Marines obviously could do something like that. We could blockade it. And I don't think we would want to destroy it, but we would use it as leverage towards the end of this thing Now we own completely their economic viability. So those are things that are under consideration, certainly. One of them has already taken place, and that is to achieve maritime dominance of the Gulf and the Straits of Hormuz so that ships can be escorted through that. That's a work in progress. The other two that I mentioned, stopping Iranian shipping completely of oil, and also what to do about Clark Island, are likely options that are under consideration. So, but we have to return to normalcy and the flow of oil, you know that, through the Gulf and through, the Straits of Hormuz. And it's likely going to take force to be able to do that.
Well, we're about the halfway mark. President's goal was 4 to 6 weeks, not in cement, but that was his goal. We're through week 3, so I'm calling that the halfway mark. I'd say we just have a minute here left before we hit a breaks, General. But I would say we're in awfully good shape for the halfway mark. And when the president says we consider winding down our great military effort in the Middle East, I mean, I think he's just saying we've got other things to do. We're not going to leave, cut and run. But we're in pretty good shape on this war, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, very good shape. I mean, we had obviously a very detailed plan, and we've been able to achieve those details, and we'll continue to make progress. I think a halfway mark for the Israelis for sure. We're probably a little bit further along than that. The Israelis have taken on a greater burden than what we're taking on. They're helping with the destruction of all offensive capabilities, but they're also taking on the added burden of taking down all the organizations that sustain the regime.
I love that. I just love that. That is just so wonderful what Israel is doing. Anyway, General Jack Keane, thank you for your insights. Thank you for helping us. And we look forward to seeing you this coming week. Folks, unfortunately, we got to take a break. I'm Larry Kudlow, and I'll be right back with a little bit before we get into the economy. Please stick around. I'm Kudlow. We'll be right back.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
One of the things that General Keane mentions is that this Marine expeditionary forces, I don't know the exact number. I've seen estimates, 2,500, 4,500, I'm not sure. They have a number of tasks, but they will be assisting, presumably, in taking control and reopening the Strait of Hormuz, which is coming, all in good time. All in good time. We're ahead of schedule. General said we're probably past the halfway mark. I think that's what President Trump is inferring. We're not leaving yet, but there's more work to be done. But the whole matter of reopening the Strait of Hormuz is going to get resolved, and that'll take pressure off these oil prices and stock markets. And we'll talk about all this over the course of the show. Right now, we're going to take a break, and on the other side, we're going to do some economic work. I'm Kudlow. Please stick around, folks.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I filed my return,
but I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though.
I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
The Larry Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So, one of the things General Keane mentioned is the Marine expeditionary forces heading towards the Persian Gulf, I'm sure they have many missions. One of them is going to be to clear up the Strait of Hormuz and reopen the thing in the next few weeks. That's bound to help the stock market and ease up on these oil prices, which really don't reflect supply and demand in the markets, in the world markets. But anyway, we'll let that go. And the question is, Jay Powell wants to be chairman of the Federal Reserve for life. He's going to barricade himself in one of the bathrooms so they can't take him out. It's not good. When he said that, the stock market fell 300-plus points. And then the question is, what's the economy really doing here? Everybody's so focused on the war and the oil price story, but the duration is likely to be relatively short. So let's talk to our two distinguished guests. John Carney is the Breitbart news editor for economics and finance and co-author of the fabulous daily Breitbart Business Digest. And E.J. Antoni, economist and senior fellow at Unleashed Prosperity, chief economist at the Heritage Foundation, and distinguished author of many columns. Gentlemen, welcome. Let's see. Let me start with John Carney, who has probably done more legal work on the Federal Reserve in the last few months than any living person, probably any dead person, too. So, John, I don't want to obsess about it. I mean, we obsessed about it enough on the TV show, but and EJ was a part of that yesterday. But basically, the point is here that Jay Powell cannot appoint himself chairman of the Federal Reserve Board, whatever he calls himself, chairman pro tem. But the point that you made last night in the show, was very important. Your hypothesis is that when he made those statements at the press conference Wednesday, he did not check in with his fellow governors on the board. He did not check in with them. And you know what? The more I think about that, the more important that becomes.
That's right. That's right, Larry. He did not check. You can tell just by his wording. If he had the confidence, if he had told the board to ask about this, he would have said, the board believes that I will be the chairman pro tem. He didn't say that. He instead said, in keeping with law and past practice, I will be. By the way, he's totally wrong about the law and the past practice. He seems to think, and I don't know where he's getting this advice because it's very bad. I do not believe he even has spoken to the general counsel of the Federal Reserve, because they would have told him that there is absolutely nothing in the law that says that when there is another person who has been nominated to succeed you as the chairman of the Federal Reserve, that you get to just stay there until – I mean, this could go on for years, by the way, Larry, because we don't know if the Justice Department is going to drop the investigation. So Powell is saying – he gets to stay there past his term. May 15th is when it ends, until the Senate decides to confirm the next guy. That's not how it works. At the very least, he would need a board vote, but that's also really not how it works. Legally, what will happen is that Donald Trump will get to select one of the sitting governors to be the temporary chairman while they wait for Warsh to get confirmed, if it comes to that. That means he'll probably pick Mickey Bowman, Christopher Waller, or if he really wants to mess with them, he can pick Stephen Myron, who's brand new. I do think he'll pick one of the people who's been on the board for longer, probably Bowman or Waller, who are been there for a while. But look, if you wanted to get Tom Tillis to get off this obsession where he thinks he can control the Justice Department also. Appoint Myron. That'll get things moving. Stephen Myron's a very, very smart guy, but I think it would, show people they don't have the power they think they do. The Senate doesn't have to confirm the temporary thing. This is a replacement for the Senate not confirming someone. So Trump just gets to name one of the people on the board.
God, there's so many combinations. I was just thinking, so Myron could step down and Warsh could step in, but Tillis might not buy into that.
That's right. Tillis might say, because Warsh has to be confirmed to the board if he's going to be chairman. So and maybe they could do something like split the difference. Say, look, don't confirm him as chairman yet, but confirm him to the board. But then Trump would get to appoint him as chairman pro temp. But Myron is sitting in the seat right now that Warsh is up for. So Myron actually would make a natural appointee because it's the seat that will become the chairman's seat. And then you have this other outrageous thing where Powell is saying he still won't even tell us if he'll step down from the board after Warsh is confirmed.
Right.
He says, I might just stick around. That's also unprecedented. Nobody has done that since 1946. It's scandalous. If he keeps saying these lawless and unprecedented things that break with convention, I think actually Donald Trump should seriously think about removing him. I know that would cause a lot of outrage, but he can't remove him as governor except for cause, but as chairman, and this is something a lot of people don't realize, there's no for-cause protection for the chairman.
Right.
The president can remove the
Right.
chair.
That's so important.
Chair.
That's so important. You know that? Trump could just step in and fire him. And for cause. Cause here is, bad behavior, illegal behavior, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, that's exactly right. I saw besides your thing, somebody else wrote this. A legal beagle lawyer.
Yes, so Adrian Vermeule has written it. He's a Harvard professor.
Yeah, that's the one. I think
he did a lot of work on this. Peter Conti Brown, who's another distinguished scholar of Fed history, he has said there is no protection built into the law for the chairman as chairman. They have protection as governor, but the way the law works is the chairman is protected more by collegiality, convention, but not by the law. Trump can remove Powell as chairman.
Let me get EJ in here. EJ, so the Fed, the decision the Fed made on monetary policy, apart from Jay Powell's foibles, you're down to perhaps 1 or 0 rate cuts this year. That seems to be the consensus thinking on the Fed. And that was a big surprise. That's one reason the market sold off before Powell made his remarks on his chairman pro tem. What do you think of that? And EJ, was the Fed right to do nothing on this meeting? Just kind of keep their powder dry.
Well, Larry, not only are fewer people pricing in rate cuts, but you're actually seeing some people price in one rate hike here, if you can believe that. And that's all based on this, this silly notion that higher oil prices are somehow going to cause inflation. And we talked about this on your TV show yesterday. The fact that just because some prices rise, in fact, even if a lot of prices rise, that's actually not the same thing as inflation from a monetary perspective. And the reason that's important, even though it may feel the same to the average American, it's important because it's not the same for the Fed. The Fed is going to try to use a monetary tool to deal with a non-monetary problem. And in doing so, it's going to make things worse. Look, this is the equivalent of if a person's got a stomach ache, if they have food poisoning, let's say, that the doctor's going to turn around and give them chemotherapy. That is not the right drug to treat this problem, and you will make the patient worse, not better. Just because oil and oil derivatives are getting more expensive is not a reason to make credit more expensive. That's silly. Again, it will not actually address the problem. It will make things worse. And when we had an oil embargo decades ago, the Fed actually did the exact same thing. They made that same policy mistake where they raised rates in the face of an already slowing economy, and it just made things even worse. And unfortunately, Powell has shown through his own behavior that he has a habit of making things worse, of repeating past policy mistakes. keeping rates way too low for way too long, giving us 40-year high inflation, and then raising rates so fast that it froze over the housing market, that it caused the interest on the national debt to double. Now, obviously, Biden and his cronies had a hand in all of those different mistakes as well. But the fact remains that so much of what has gone wrong in the American economy for the last 5 or 6 years could not have happened without Powell and all of his accompanying mistakes.
You know, I think we're going to take a break in a moment, and we'll come back. I think that that the threat of those mistakes that you described really reverberated through the stock market and continues to reverberate through the stock market. Stock market, you know, the Dow fell almost 1,000 points this week. You can blame it on high oil prices, and that's probably part of it. But, you know, profits and productivity are still pretty strong. The stock market doing pretty well. I'm just saying, I think a lot of investors listened to that press conference and just they got out of Dodge. I think that's a mistake. I mean, I wouldn't sell the market because Powell's going to be gone and the war is going to be gone sooner than people think. But in any case, I think that has affected the stock market. And there's no clarity in Fed policy. Let me think for what somebody overseas, was it Christine Lagarde? The ECB said she might have to raise rates. Some central banker said they might have to raise rates because of the oil price increase, which, as you point out, would be the wrong response. I mean, that's just would be the terribly wrong response. By the way, I was just kind of processing Mickey Bowman as Fed chair. All right, why do I think Mickey Bowman's going to be the next Fed chair? I don't know. She's a very smart woman. Fellas, let's take a break. I want you to help me with the actual state of the economy when we get to the other side. Folks, we're talking to E.J. Antoni of the Heritage Foundation, John Carney, Breitbart Business Digest. I'm Kudlow. We'll be right back.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So let's get a read on the economy. We're talking to E.J. Antoni, Heritage Foundation, Unleash Prosperity. John Carney is the co-author of the daily Breitbart Business Digest. We got 2 minutes each, fellas. John Carney, why don't you start? How is the economy?
The economy is actually doing pretty well. If you look at unemployment claims, there's hardly any. I mean, we are at, firing on all cylinders when it comes to employing the workforce that we have. I think last week we had 205,000 unemployment claims. That is functionally zero. Almost no one is losing their jobs. Employers can't get enough. Productivity is rising really quickly. That is a promising thing for the future of the economy. And then when you look at capital expenditures, we're still in a capital expenditure boom. This is Trump's economic policy directly feeding into a better economy. So we would be doing very well. The high oil price is a risk to growth, but if we get this resolved, that won't be a big problem.
EJ, profits still pretty strong from what I can gather.
Exactly, Larry. And, somebody once told me that profits are the mother's milk of equity prices. Yep. So that's good news there, right?
Yep.
And look, if we go sector by sector, manufacturing, there are a lot of indicators that that our nation's manufacturers are finally turning a corner after about a 3.5-year downturn. That's good news there. But I just want to echo a point that John just articulated, which is energy prices. That is the big wild card. If we had this conversation 4 weeks ago, I would have said I am 100% bullish on 2026. I see no problems on the horizon. But of course, now the question is just how long are prices going to stay up? If, like you were saying, the war is wrapped up literally in a few days and prices start coming back down and there's not a lot of damage to energy infrastructure in the Middle East, then I agree. We are right back on track. And I think that's just what markets are trying to price in right now. Nobody knows which way things are going to go. And so they don't know how much risk to really price in on both the energy side, but also the equity side, because obviously energy prices and equity prices should be negatively correlated.
Well, I wouldn't say a few days, but I would say a few weeks. Just based on the president's own statements. He's been very transparent, and he's getting his information from the Joint Chiefs and CENTCOM. And I think they're ahead of schedule. General Keane does, too. I can't predict the war. Look, if it's another month, you've got the one big, beautiful bill of tax cuts and 100% depreciation and deregulation, just to name a few, which is boosting business. Both of you guys agree, I think. You have a capital goods boom, and there's factory construction, and manufacturing's coming back. So I don't think this war is going to interrupt that. I could be wrong. I don't know. The first quarter, let's see, the Cleveland Fed GDP now, or Atlanta Fed GDP now is a little over 2%, but they don't know. They don't know anything about this either. I mean,
that Atlanta Fed number is probably an underestimation, because what they're not able to really put in there is the bounce back from the fourth quarter government shutdown.
Right.
And so that is actually, a lot of that is coming into the first quarter of this year. And so when I look at that number, I at least adjust it up by half a point to maybe a full point. That's exactly what was taken out of the first quarter, or the fourth quarter of last year. We should see most of that come back in the first quarter.
That's a good point. I just would say, fellas, the war is 3 weeks old. 3 weeks. And it's not like a government shutdown, because the whole economy is not shut down. I mean, the war is 3 weeks, and it may go another 3 weeks. But that's really small stuff. It's small duration. I think, EJ, it's just, I think people have to keep their powder dry on this whole story, because the economy may be a lot stronger than anybody thinks or even realizes. Anyway, that's the music. Means we're out of time. Thank you, EJ Antoni, Heritage Foundation, John Carney of Breitbart. Folks, stay with us, because the brilliant Ambassador Robert O'Brien, former National Security Advisor, is coming on at the half hour. Talk some more about Iran. I'm Kudlow. We'll be right back.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So nobody knows foreign policy strategy better than Ambassador Robert O'Brien, former National Security Advisor. He's now chairman of American Global Strategies. And dear friend, Robert, welcome back. Thanks for helping us. You wanted to talk about affordability. I didn't know if that meant the Pentagon request for $200 billion or what you were thinking. I mean, I'm very keen on the $200 battle. But anyway, tell what you have in mind.
Well, I think it's both, Larry. One, we need to make sure that our warfighters have the munitions and the platforms that they need to finish the job. And look, it's expensive. I mean, we use precision ammunition and precision rockets and missiles to make sure we limit civilian casualties, but get the bad guys and get the enemy platforms that we need to stop launching ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, drones at us. And that's an expensive proposition. So we need to make sure our warfighters have everything they need and that they're fully equipped to fight the fight.
It's going to be a battle. It's going to be a battle. We've got Senator Scott coming on after you to talk about it, but it's going to be a battle. Democrats are going to oppose it, and they're going to throw a lot of, anti-war propaganda on this. I think reconciliation is the way to go. But I asked General Keane about it too, and he reminded us that there's no contingency fund for war. I mean, it comes out of the Pentagon budget. So, for all the reasons you mentioned, all the ammunition, all the precision weapons and so forth, it's got to be replenished, and you can't not do it during a war.
No, and Larry, we can't send our young men and women who are just the finest Americans that we've got to go fight our battles overseas, but then not equip them with what they need to win and to defeat the adversary. So we've got to win this thing. But there's another issue that we're seeing the Democrats do as well, and it's really disingenuous. It's this idea of affordability in the midterms, that somehow the war has made living less affordable. And granted, gas prices have gone up a little bit. But think about this. We're going to win a war. We're going to defeat an extremist country that for 50 years, for almost my entire adult life, has been shouting death to America at the mosque on Friday, frantically trying to get a nuclear weapon to use against us. And gas prices, they may go up, briefly, but they're going to come back down when the war's won and when we control that energy source. And the American people are willing to take that sacrifice. It's kind of like with the AI, and we're developing a whole new industry that's generational. I mean, we've never seen anything like AI with these data centers. And granted, memory chips will be able to cost a little bit more, and the electricity is going to be a little harder to come by. But the president's going to solve that. President Trump's going to make sure that we can get memory chips for our Internet of Things and get the electricity we need to operate our country. But we're going to have the most incredible industry that the world has ever seen with these data centers and AI and quantum computing. And that's going to be a national security win for us. So, again, the American people aren't stupid. They see these generational achievements that President Trump is trying to accomplish. And same with manufacturing. And maybe we'll have a little tariff issue here and there, but President Trump's going to get the farmers taken care of if they get penalized. But we're going to have manufacturing back in America, and America is going to be great again with manufacturing. So when you look at what President Trump is doing, these massive things, defeating our enemies, our sworn enemies, bringing a whole new generation of an industry that almost created a whole cloth, bringing manufacturing back to America. There may be some short-term sacrifices in the issue of prices, but those prices are going to come down, and then ultimately we're going to have 250 more great years because of what he's doing.
You look at this, I mean, for heaven's sakes, destroying the Iranian regime and their nuclear facilities and their terrorism, on the other side of that, looking through it, there's nothing but freedom and prosperity. Prosperity in the Middle East, prosperity in even Europe, prosperity in the United States. I mean, it's a uniformly good thing. I agree with your point, and that's affordability. Right now, you're right, by the way. We were just talking to the economists, E.J. Antoni and John Carney. Manufacturing's coming back, and wages are, until this little oil price shock, wages were beating inflation. Actually, they're still beating inflation. They may not next month, but we'll see. But the point is, manufacturing's producing high-paying jobs. And we're building factories. We're constructing factories, which also builds in high-paying jobs.
You're seeing, Larry, and part of it's the war and the fight to security, but you're seeing the dollar, edge up again. And I keep thinking about you with King Dollar. And we defeat the Iranians. We take the lead in AI and keep it, and we bring manufacturing back to America. King Dollar is going to roll for another 250 years. I mean, this is going to be amazing.
Actually, the dollar, you're right about the dollar. Nobody talks about it, but that ameliorates the temporary oil price shock. That's what it does. Just makes it less difficult because the dollar has gone up. You're right. The dollar's gone up about 5% in the last few weeks during this war. Robert, on the military side, what's your take on the Marines, the expeditionary forces? There's a lot of stuff being written, but it's all very vague. People are drawing conclusions I'm not sure they should draw. I don't even know how many are coming. They're coming from San Diego, but I'm told, and then they're going to get to the Persian Gulf at some point. Do you have a quick thought on these expeditionary?
Very quickly. We're moving a Marine Expeditionary Unit, an MEU, to the Gulf. And MEU is a self-contained combat unit that has artillery, air power, infantry, ground power. It's an incredibly powerful, integrated organization that can operate basically on its own with its own flat top. It's got its own F-35s. It's got its own connectors to get to shore to do an amphibious landing. And you put 3,600 highly trained, specialized U.S. Marine Corps forces wherever you want in the world. It's an incredibly powerful tool. They could take Karg Island in 20 minutes and control that for as long as the president wanted, indefinitely. And so it's a very powerful tool. I'm not sure. The other thing they could do is if we locate the enriched uranium that the Iranians are trying to abscond with and hide. If we locate that, those 3,600 Marines can descend on any area inside Iran, set up a perimeter, get the enriched uranium out, and leave, and do so basically unmolested with the power of this MEU. So it's a very, very useful tool for the president to have in this circumstance. He's moving them into the Gulf, and they'll be ready to go as soon as he needs them.
Wow.
God bless the United States Marine Corps, Larry.
Yeah, yes, sir. Absolutely. 100%. Those are interesting uses. I hadn't really thought through any of that stuff. Is this, will they help clear out the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, that's what taking Karg Island would do, because we control Karg Island, and we tell the Iranians, you want to export any oil, you're going to do it through us and through the Marines who are on Karg Island. And if you disturb any of our shipping going through there or molest any shipping going through there, you're not going to export anything yourself through Karg Island, and it would be an incredible negotiating point to piece of leverage to have over the Iranians if we took control of Karg Island with that Marine Expeditionary Unit.
So we would take over the pipelines there, all the export stuff. We'd be running.
Absolutely, we control the whole thing. If the Iranians want to export oil, they do it through us.
Yeah, and then if they don't want to play ball, then they'll have no money. I mean, that's their economic center, right?
No ticky, no laundry.
No ticky, no laundry. I know. I get it. That's fascinating. So we're about halfway through, 3 weeks. The president said 4 to 6 weeks. We're probably ahead of schedule. Do you see it that way?
I do. One of the things that's going on, Larry, is this is the most probably exquisite military campaign that's ever been done. People are going to be studying this campaign for generations. I mean, the Chinese are going to go to town on it. Everyone's going to study what we did, how we took out the air defenses, how we took control of the air, how we took control of the sea, how we eliminated so many targets so quickly. It's really a modern miracle. I mean, this is the Gulf War. This is the Falkland Islands on steroids, and we've executed it. But you're not hearing any of that from the press. The press knows it, but they want to talk about the politics of it. They want to talk about Joe Kent or Tucker Carlson or Chuck Schumer and criticisms of the president of the war. And they don't want to talk about the exquisite job our warfighters have done to put us in a position to have victory very soon.
The legacy media basically is trying to make a case that we're losing. It's incredible. Yeah. Even the front page of the Wall Street Journal. Honest to God. But the New York Times is the worst of them. Absolutely.
No, and this is one of the biggest wins in military history. And like this goes back to the Hannibal at Cannae, and this is a major military victory that's going to go down in history, and they're playing it as a political loss because the Iranians, we knew they stockpiled a lot of drones, a lot of missiles. We knew that would happen. They're using that stockpile. This is the death throes, as Scott Besson said, of a dying regime, and yet our own press, our own fellow citizens are trying to give misinformation. They talk about misinformation. They're trying to give misinformation to the American people that we're somehow losing this war. And nothing could be farther from the truth.
Just the last few seconds. Was Hannibal about 440 BC?
I think 330. 330
BC. I just missed it. For heaven's sakes. Yeah. Robert O'Brien, thank you. We appreciate the rundown. Former National Security Advisor and now Chairman of American Global Strategies. We appreciate it. Hannibal, I guess we appreciate you, too. I have to look that one up. Folks, stick around. We're going to have Senator Rick Scott of Florida come on, talk about $200 billion for the Pentagon request. to make sure that our great men and women in the military have everything they need at their disposal. No back talk is necessary. I'm Kudlow. Senator Scott coming up. Stay with us, please.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Yes, and back to this issue of Pentagon $200 billion request, plus whatever else is cooking in the Senate. But we're fortunate to have influential Senator Rick Scott from the great state of Florida. Senator Scott, as always, sir, thank you for helping us. Look, this is unpopular, but we've got to finance this war. We've got to give the absolute best support to our brave men and women. And $200 billion is a lot of money. The Democrats are going to oppose it. And my thought, Senator, is the only way to get this done is through a reconciliation bill, because otherwise you'll never get the 60 votes from the Democratic side. What you think about reconciliation?
Whether it's through reconciliation or regular order, we have to get it done. But first off, Larry, this stopping Iran from having nuclear weapons, stopping Iran from having ballistic missiles that kills Americans, stopping them from continue year after year after year killing Americans is not unpopular in Florida. In Florida, we respect what the president's doing, and we're fed up with the appeasement of Biden and Obama. All right, so that's number one. Number two is the most important thing we can do, right, is make sure our military men and women have all the resources so they can succeed. Because if they don't succeed, we don't have our freedom. There's nothing more important right now than defending American freedom. So I don't know the details of the $200 billion, but I'm going to fight like hell, whatever the number is, to make sure our military men and women can destroy Iran's ability to have a nuclear weapon to kill my family or your family, or have ballistic missiles to kill your family or my family. This has got to end. We got to stop appeasing people. We've had the Obama Biden appeasement strategy. It hasn't worked. All right. And so I'm going to make sure the military has resources. Now, if the Democrats don't want to help us, which God forbid, I don't know how you can not want to help our military men and women, then we have to do it through reconciliation, which will only take Republican votes.
That's what I'm saying. That's my point. You're never going to get 60 votes for the appropriation. Mike Johnson, Speaker Johnson, is already organizing it in the House. Jody Arrington, the budget head, is already organizing reconciliation. I'm told senators are not really for it, but I don't, for all the reasons you said, great reasons, brilliant reasons. Thank you for those reasons, Senator Rick Scott. For all those reasons, to get this done and to get it done expeditiously, I think you got to run through a reconciliation.
Yeah, I can't imagine there's any other way to do it. I don't know why the Democrats, they don't care about police. They don't care about ICE. They don't care about TSA agents. They don't care about our military. I mean, like, who in the hell do they represent? A whole bunch of foreigners?
You know, the numbers, you mentioned the people of Florida, the numbers nationwide now are turning in favor of this, of crushing Iran and in favor of what Mr. Trump is doing. Good polls coming out. McLaughlin poll, Rasmussen poll, Harvard-Harris poll. You're really seeing a swing up in the polls. Now, we don't fight wars by polling, but I'm just saying the public is aware of what you're saying, and it's very, very important. I just think, you know, you are becoming a leader, even though you're stiffing me on TV. You're great on radio. We'd love to have you on TV, but you keep stiffing us. But you're becoming an important leader. You've got to organize a reconciliation bill. Lindsey Graham, I don't know who's going to do it. John Thune's got to start. It
starts with the Budget Committee. Lindsey's the chair of the Budget Committee. I'm on the Budget Committee.
All right.
Well, look, we're going to get this done.
Start it up. Monday.
Yeah, we're going to get this done.
I think you have to. Whatever else will go in there, okay? Offsets, fraud, cutbacks from fraud. By the way, the Save America bill, it's going to cost money. It's going to cost money if you ever implemented the voter ID and citizenship and so forth. You might try to figure out a clever way to expand reconciliation to include that. But if not. Yeah. The most important thing here is the Pentagon money. And, I'm sure that, Pete Hegseth will come up and talk and tell you all what's in it. But, the war's 3 weeks old. We're doing fabulously. We have a chance here to destroy the regime in Iran, finally, once and for all. Maybe even foment some kind of regime change. But you know where I'm coming. As a former NEC director, as a former deputy budget director years ago under Reagan, reconciliation is the only way, Senator. The only way. You'll never get 60 votes. The Democrats are the anti-war party, right? They're going to oppose the war. It's incredible to me. They will oppose the war.
It's like I don't know who their voters are. Their voters must be people that hate the police, like unsafe neighborhoods, and don't want to have freedom. I mean, that must be the Democrat Party now.
That's incredible. You're quite right. The arguments will have to be made again. Steve Witkoff, came back and we had all this enriched uranium. 60% enriched uranium can become 90% nuclearized uranium in 7 to 10 days. Remember all that stuff? There's stuff in the paper today. Iran has missiles that can hit the Indian Ocean, okay? People didn't even know that. That's 2,500 miles away. All these things are going to be marshaled again when Democrats say there's no immediate problem, there's no existential problem. All that nonsense from the left wing of the party, which has infiltrated the whole party.
Yeah, I agree. Yep, we're going to get it done. It's just we got to get the Save America Act passed. We got to make sure we fund our military. So we have got to get we've got to get these we got to get Department of Homeland Security open again. We got to get these ICE agents paid, TSA agents paid. I mean, think about the stories. I mean, these Democrat senators, they all want to get paid. I have a bill, no budget, no pay, that they block all the time. But if they want to get paid, but don't worry about those TSA agents. They're trying to protect our security. ICE agents to get rid of the criminals. Don't worry about them. They don't have to get paid. But Democrat senators have to get paid. So it makes you mad.
The stories in the paper today on the TSA are just awful. People waiting 3, 4, 5 hours.
It's so unfair.
It is unfair. But I'll tell you, Senator, you can really lead here. You've got to push this reconciliation for the defense money. You'll never get it any other way, and we have to get it. You know that. We have to get that money.
I agree.
There's no contingency. There's no contingency money for wars. It's coming out of the Pentagon budget. Anyway, I don't need to tell you. Senator Rick Scott, leading conservative in the Senate. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it very much.
Right.
Folks,
bye-bye.
We'll take a break. Senator Scott's terrific. He's always so available and helpful. Anyway, we're going to take a break and do some stock market work on the other side. I'm Kudlow. Please stay with us, folks.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. Hour 3. Great to be with you. Going to talk about the stock market and interest rates and whatever. By the way, you can hear us on the internet. Live stream us on the internet. LarryKudlowShow.com. LarryKudlowShow.com. Real simple. Please join us during the week. Fox Business, fabulous Fox Business Network, FBN. The name of the show is Kudlow, 4 to 5 p.m. every day, Monday through Friday. And if for some reason you can't make it at 4, why, just text your favorite 9-year-old, and she will show you how to DVR the show. You'll never miss a thing. Now, we got two smart fellows here. I'm just going to lead in by saying this. The strategy should be to sell oil and buy stocks. Buy the S&P index. Sell oil, buy stocks. Timing, I have no idea. No idea whatsoever. I don't even believe in timing. It's just saying the oil prices are going to come down quite a bit, and the share prices are going to go up quite a bit. And I'll leave the rest of it to Jack Bouroudjian, chairman of SmartX Data, and Jim Iuorio, director of TJM Institutional Services, two old friends of mine, Two very wise people. All right, you heard me. Jim Iuorio, go ahead. You're on.
The fact that you try to get ahead of it because you're worried about what we're going to say. Which, by the way, if you break it down as simply as you just did, what do you need me and Jack for? Let's just move on. Let's go have lunch.
I like you. I mean, I thought we'd talk politics, maybe tell some jokes.
Okay.
Never occurred to me that we would talk stocks, for heaven's sakes.
For heaven's sakes. So the oil thing, I actually agree with you. I think the oil market is pricing in somewhat of a worst-case scenario. And I think if I had to make a trade in oil, which I do not, I would be a seller of oil back down into the 75 to 85 range. And I think that will happen. My base case is that this thing with the Straits of Hormuz, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, resolves itself within the next 3 weeks. Although that's not an investment strategy for me. I need to see it actually happen, and so does the stock market. The stock market isn't going to – I agree with you that it's going to eventually rally, but it has to work through this uncertainty. It has to get a little more clarity. There was a moment a couple of days ago where in the futures market we rallied like 50 ticks, and it was almost like this collective moment where everyone who was trading the stock market realized, oh, no, we can't really go higher until we figure out where oil's going. So let's just pump the brakes on this, and then it broke again. And I think so. Right now, 6,500 in the S&P. I'm getting out of some of my hedges. I believe it represents some better value here, but I'm not ready to get long yet until there's some resolution.
How much S&P down? It's down 7% from the high. What was the high? Was it about 7,000?
Call it 7,000, yeah.
And does that coincide with how much has it gone down in the 3 weeks of the Iran war?
Most of the move lower. So
yeah,
it's down. What is that? Is that about?
Call it 5% plus.
Yeah, call it 5% plus, and so most of it has been since the Iran war, which, by the way, is very reasonable. If the part of the stock market's buoyancy was that we believe that rates are going lower, if the market believes, which I'm not certain of, that higher oil prices are completely inflationary, then the Fed's hands are tied a little bit. So that's why the stock market can't rally if that's one of the theses of the rally was that rates were coming lower.
Yeah, well, I don't know timing, and I don't do timing. I'm just saying. It's going to be, this is the field of dreams that you have to reimagine all of this stuff. Jack Bouroudjian, reimagining the fact that the war is going to be over in a couple weeks and that the Strait of Hormuz will be reopened and that the Iranian regime, such as it is, it's already been pretty much destroyed, but more destruction coming. Who takes over after that, I do not know. That's up to the military and diplomatic planners. I'm just saying, for something as mundane as stocks and bonds, by the way, there's about 160 million Americans one way or another in the stock market. Just want to toss that out. So it's not a small thing. What would you say? I mean, you want to buy oil prices and you buy oil and sell stocks, or I'm on the other side of that trade?
Well, first of all, let me say this. My good friend Jimmy caught the huge move up in oil. When we were on the last time, he was talking about being long crude, and I was talking about actually being on the other side of that trade. That's why it's hard for me to ever be on the other side of one of Jim Iuorio's trades. Right
Thank
there.
you, Jack.
I'll tell you that. Right? But what we're looking at, though, and it's something that Jimmy will understand from the floor, okay? When the market goes down 10%, you buy it with one hand. When it goes down 20%, you buy it with two hands. And what that really means for the people that are listening is that you start nibbling at 10%, 7 to 10%. This is where you want to start buying some good quality stocks. Now, what's been driving the liquidation? Look at it. It's been gold and it's been stocks. Well, who holds these large positions? The large sovereign wealth funds from the Middle East. They need that capital. They've been repatriating it. They need it desperately. So you see them starting to liquidate as much as they possibly can to bring back home. For us, it gives us a discount. There are still some amazing, and plus it was the perfect storm. Remember, you have the entire, Iran story. You had a quadruple expiration, which is the quarter, which is where the end of the fiscal year for a lot of corporations. You have tax season coming up after a 40% run up in equities over the course of the year. Let's keep that in mind. All right. So, the reality is that this is a buying opportunity. You're absolutely right with equities. So the market is still strong. I mean, there are stories. There's a story that went just right by the wayside. Nobody even noticed this. All right, there's going to be trillion, almost $1 trillion that's going to be spent in Ohio between SoftBank and the Department of Energy over a big federal land grant that they're now using 3,700 acres of what used to be a uranium enrichment plant. And now what they're doing, Larry, is they're taking that and they're going to turn it into probably one of the biggest data centers we're going to see in the country. Who's going to build that? Who's going to supply that? Who's going to wire that? Those are all jobs. This is something that's going to hit CapEx numbers like we have never seen before. There's an explosion coming. Now, as far as Iran goes, and I'll leave it with this. My entire adult life, I've been hearing death to America. I've been watching terrorism being exported. I've been listening to, this regime just treat the Christian minorities, Jewish minorities, and women like animals. So, you know what? If it's a little pain at the pump, that's fine. Yep. I can live with it.
It's a small price to pay.
Yeah, because the other side of that is a world that is a much better world in my eyes.
Freedom and democracy and prosperity. Absolutely right. Middle East. Even Europe will be better. United States will be better. There is a CapEx boom going on. I want just to ask Iuorio, gold lost 10% last week. Silver lost 15, 16%. What's going on there?
So I think a couple things changed. I mean, when it was at 5,500, again, I got out, and I was very public about this. I got out about 30% of my gold and silver because that price was ridiculous. I think the last few moves lower have been positioning, people selling what they made money on to cover losses on what they have in risk assets. I think like Jack said, selling out of gold to repatriate assets by some foreign countries, I think is a big deal. But that 4,500 level in gold seems like a good one, and I did start buying again. And it's the same stuff. When everybody else is panicking and throwing things out, to me, yes, it does represent a time to buy or reestablish the longs. Which, by the way, the crude long that I've been banging the drum about all year was mostly based on an improving domestic economic story. You always accuse me of being the gloom and doom guy, that everything's falling apart. No, that was my main story of this year, was a domestic economic story. Now it's morphed into supply disruptions, obviously, and I'm not sure both those things can last together for very long, but I do think it's going to resolve itself soon. And again, the repatriation of money here and the reinvestment in our country, I think, is an enormous deal and one of the three prongs of the domestic story that's excellent, along with tax cuts and deregulation.
I couldn't figure out what gold was doing. Where to get to 5,500? I don't understand gold
that was
at
weird,
all.
Wasn't it? That was a panic or something. Silver went through the roof. That whole move made me very nervous. When things go up parabolically like that, things can go down very fast too. So that part scared me.
Let me take a break. We'll talk about some interest rates and some other things. We're talking to two veterans, folks, two very knowledgeable veterans, Jack Bouroudjian, SmartX Data, Jim Iuorio, TJM Institutional Services. By the way, Chicago Bears moving to Indiana. We haven't talked about that. I'm Kudlow. We'll be right back.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So which way are interest rates going? The vast consensus pre-war was rates are going to go down, whether they're official Fed funds rates or bank lending or bank reserve rates or treasury rates or whatever. But this past week, after listening to Jay Powell, the 2-year note went up 17 basis points. The 5-year went up 14 basis points. The 10-year went up 10 basis points to 4.39. The mortgage rate, which pre-war had dropped below 6%, is now just about 6.25. So let's hear the wisdom. Jim Iuorio, TJM Institutional Services, and Jack Bouroudjian, SmartX Data. Jim Iuorio, people thought rates were going down, but right now they're going up. And the Federal Reserve, the best I can say for them is that they confused the situation. The worst I can say for them is none of them want to cut interest rates.
Yeah, I think there's no question that they don't want to cut them right now. There was a moment 2 days ago where the futures markets had taken away all the easings for the next year and a half, and actually had priced in slight tightening. Now that resolved itself soon. Here's what irritates me, because rates are going up for two reasons. One is that the market is saying higher oil prices are 100% inflationary, and they don't want to hear any other argument. There is another argument. Oil prices going higher takes away people's money at the pump. In some ways, it's like a tax hike, which has a little bit of a disinflationary effect. I do believe the inflationary effect is more profound, obviously. The second part about this is that the market is saying that the Treasury is going to have to sell a lot of bonds to finance a war if it starts to extend for the next couple months, which, again, I don't think it will. So what did 10-year go up to? 10-year goes up to about 4.3-ish. I actually think that there's a level above here. I think it's 4.6, 4.7, where the market then starts to talk about the Fed coming back in and buying bonds to drive rates down. I don't think we're there yet, and I think right now they wouldn't talk about it because they're worried about inflation. But my base case on 10-year, I think it does go up to about 4.6, but then I think it starts to get stuck in the mud and then could come lower.
Jack, you think 4.5 plus 10-year? That's going to wreck the mortgage market, by the way. It's going to destroy the housing market.
I think it's temporary, Larry. I do think that this move that we're seeing in interest rates is tied to oil, but I also think that we could see it turn just as quickly as we saw the market go up. Remember, one of the things to keep in mind is, for those that are listening, is that there's that inverse relationship between bonds and the prices and the rates. When people are selling bonds, rates are going up. We have seen a liquidation, a mass liquidation across the board. That means they're selling bonds, they're selling stocks, they're selling gold, they're selling silver, they're selling everything that they can. And what they are, and that's one of the reasons that we see pressure on interest rates right now.
Who are these evildoers?
They're not evildoers. These are people that are like sovereign wealth fund. Think of the money that's in the Mideast right now. Between the Saudis.
So let me get this
Emirates.
right. So we're protecting them, and we're covering their asses, and they're selling all our assets and driving up interest rates. Holy cow!
Well, we didn't say anything when they came in and took markets up.
I'm for America
the money
first.
that they were putting in.
Someone's got to spank them.
But the reality is that's where a lot of that pressure is coming from. I do think it's temporary, though. And one more thing I will add, Larry, all right? If we see Pritzker lose the Bears, he will become the Aaron Burr of Illinois, okay? All right?
That's right.
Jordan Caskey was at my restaurant.
You're both from Chicago. Well, Indiana's only a little ways south of Chicago, isn't it? Where is Indiana?
It's a different country, Larry. It's a different country than Chicago. That's the way we see it. All right?
I'm not even sure Indiana's a real place. I've never even been there.
Yeah, they got low taxes. They believe in capitalism and freedom. They go to church on Sundays. Indiana's a fabulous place.
Jordan Caskey was at my restaurant on Thursday, and he always comes alone. George, he owns the Bears, and he's a very quiet guy. But everybody in the restaurant kept whispering to me, "Go ask him, go ask him what he's doing." But I didn't do that.
That's wonderful. But it is interesting what you're saying. Look at a continued sell-off in bonds will do damage to the hopes for the housing market, the mortgage market. I didn't understand. I mean, look, apart from Jay Powell, we've talked a lot about Jay Powell on this show and probably talk some more, but what he's doing is, with respect to being chairman, is crazy. But I'm more interested in monetary policy. The rest of those guys, the message the Fed gave out on Wednesday, vis-a-vis Powell, vis-a-vis their economic projections, was that they're not going to cut their Fed funds rate, and if they did, it'll be year-end and just once. So
and they're wrong. They're making another policy mistake right now, and they do that when oil goes higher because their simplistic models just tell them that it's 100% inflationary, and they forget that if, God forbid, oil stayed high for the next 6 months like this, it would be such a recessionary hurdle that they have to cut real quick. So they're being stupid again. All they have to do is ask the three of us. We can take care of it.
You're right about that.
Well, I think Iran actually gave Powell an excuse not to do anything until he's out of office.
When's that going to be? When's he going to be? He doesn't want to ever get out of office.
You know what? I wish it was last week, but you know what? And as I've told you, he reminds me of that old pitcher that's got nothing left in the tank. You know what I mean? And we see him on the mound, and every time he throws a pitch, we cringe because we see it just floating up to the plate, and we just hope that nobody hits it out of the ballpark.
You can't have inflation. I don't care what the reason is. With the M2 money supply growing at 3.5%. It's actually growing more slowly than its long-range growth rate which was consistent with 2.5% inflation. Money supply was 30%. Okay, it was 30% in late 2020 and early 2021, and that gave us a massive inflation. Right now, it's down to 3.5%. So the deflation recession argument is the one you have to watch.
Well, you also have productivity that is now kicking in, Larry, something that we haven't really seen before. Between productivity and that right now is going to go off the charts.
And profits. And profits.
When you start to see AI really work its way into profitability, which we're starting to now, it's going to really help, the earnings seasons as they come along. The next few years are really going to amaze people, all right, because of what we get out of the American worker. I think it's going to be, one of those things that almost sets the example. It's kind of hard to see history shifting when you're living it, but I think we're living it right now.
I'm telling you, I love everything. It's all great. Sell energy, buy stocks. That's all there is to it. Make it nice and simple. Get out of unwind your energy positions. Get back into the S&P 500. Thanks, fellas. Jack Bouroudjian, Jim Iuorio, terrific stuff. Take a break. We got Money Politics. Liz Peek and Steve Forbes and Steve Moore, and I'm Kudlow, and we'll be right back.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So, we got Pentagon funding fight coming up in Washington. We got Jay Powell fighting God knows who in Washington. We got tax hikes in Seattle. There'll never be another baseball free agent going to Seattle or these other blue states that are taxing them to death. We got Liz Peek, Fox News contributor. We got the great Steve Forbes, chairman and editor-in-chief of Forbes Media. And we got Steve Moore, WABC radio host of More Money, also Unleash Prosperity Hotline. So to all of you, thank you very much for this. I appreciate it. Let me start with Steve Forbes. Steve Forbes, Jay Powell, he's a friend of yours. I know he is. He's a friend of yours. Jay Powell basically is saying, he's going to barricade himself in the bathroom in the Fed, so they'll never be able to remove him as chairman pro tem. He's doing things that are not legal and do not have the backing. He's never even asked his own board of governors. I don't think he's asked the general counsel. What does he think he's doing? And he's doing this to spite Donald Trump in the middle of the Iran war. He's sowing, markets collapse. Stocks just got slammed on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. You can blame oil prices, but I would also blame Jay Powell's misbehavior. Give me a little Steve Forbes on this story.
Well, I think he thinks he's got an opportunity to become chair for life.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it hasn't been released to the public yet. But the same team that removed Maduro at the Pentagon is now getting ready to do an operation against Jay Powell.
It's wonderful.
So it's a pathetic way to go out. But the fact is that they are making wrong policy. Right now the 10-year Treasury is about 4.25%. The 30-day bill, a Treasury bill, 30 days is 3.7%. Larry, if you had the traditional difference between a 30-day Treasury and a 10-year Treasury bond, the short rate should not be the 3.5% they have now, but 2.25%, 2.5%. So already they're 100 basis points off. They're also paying too much on bank reserves at a time when we have wobbliness, potential wobbliness in the economy, uncertainty, and all that kind of stuff. That should be about 2.5%, and they shouldn't be paying at all, but they should be much lower than it is today. So whether it's the poor misguided Powell, he needs help after when he leaves the Fed, and what they're doing is absolutely wrong, and that's not contributing to the markets today. And one of the other things, by the way, I have to get it in, is with President Trump, I wish he would get behind the Oval Office desk not behind a podium, and calmly explain to the American people. He's done it. We sort of get haphazard from time to time. What's happening with Iran and the fact that the Iranians have more ballistic missiles than we knew, the fact that they're trying to close the Strait of Hormuz, underscores not that we got a surprise by how much stuff they had, which should tell you something, but how dangerous they were and how they have to be taken out, and that regime has to be removed. And explain it to the American people, and they'll cut them the slack, and the Democrats will look like idiots, which is not something new, sadly.
Couple weeks, Steve. I told you he's going to make the speech. Couple weeks, not now. He likes doing this real-time stuff, and I think he's actually pretty good at it, but maybe we disagree on that. Liz Peek, Jay Powell is on this egotistical trip, and he is on thin legal ice, and I don't know why. He's become this crusader, but it is the president who appoints the Fed chair, not the Fed chair who appoints the Fed chair. It's the president. Not only that, in any agency, the agency does not appoint the chair. It's the president that appoints the chair, whether it's the SEC or the FTC. When his term is up, his term is up. There's no such thing as a chairman pro tem unless it's a transition from a presidential appointee. But that's not what's going on here. And I just think Jay Powell is now doing more harm to Fed respect and independence. Of course, he's been doing this all along, but he's doing even more harm to the Fed and independence. And markets rebelled against it on Wednesday, big time.
Well, I think that's probably true, Larry. I think all of this is unnecessary. Jay Powell feels he has the backing of the media and investor market sentiment, whatever, because everyone's in such a flutter all the time about Fed independence. I would argue the Fed is never independent. There's always been a political element to it. The whole thing is a manufactured problem. But I think President Trump made it a much bigger problem by undertaking this or prodding this investigation forward of Jay Powell. I think it's silly, unnecessary, and it's now created this big issue. I mean, what's the issue? Jay Powell should be leaving as normal, and he would be, except we can't move forward with the nomination of Kevin Warsh because Tom Tillis, a Republican senator, is so bogged down in this investigation. The Trump White House should figure out an elegant way to drop the investigation, move forward with it, putting Kevin Warsh in that slot. I can't imagine Jay Powell wants to hang around the Fed once his time is up. I know he has a couple more years on the board. I can't imagine he'll take advantage of that. But if he does, so what? He'll be a minor player. There are other minor players. He will not have a big outsized voice. And meanwhile, Steve Moore did a great thing on Mickey Bowman's change on the regulatory side. That's much more significant than this spat between Trump and Powell. Get it done. Let's have the regulations move forward that are sensible, that are helpful to the banking industry, and that do not, by the way, push all borrowing into the private credit sector, because that's what basically was going to happen.
Hashtag free Kevin Warsh.
Yeah.
Hashtag free Kevin Warsh. Steve Moore, you should have taken the spot when we wanted you to a couple of years ago. Look at the mess you've left.
Well, my feeling is if Jerome Powell can stay at the Fed, then I guess Donald Trump can run for a third term.
I know. Oh, I love that. Oh God, I love that.
But listen, Jerome Powell. When I see President Trump, he always says, "Steve, I made a big mistake with Jerome Powell." I say, yes, sir, it's one of the few mistakes you made. And look, he's been a lousy Fed chairman. He's the one who allowed inflation to go up to 9%, the worst we ever had since Jimmy Carter. And the irony of him is that he has been, at least in my lifetime, as long as I've been following the Fed, going back to Volcker years in the early 80s, he's been by far the most politicized Fed. That's ironic because he always talks about, we're not political. Oh, yes, you are. He's completely political. So he will be out in a few months. I don't see how he could possibly stay there. And I'm, as you know, I think Kevin Warsh was an outstanding pick. He will do exactly as Steve Forbes has taught me. We want a stable dollar, a strong dollar, as you would say, Larry, and to retain, most importantly, retain, our status as the dollar being the world reserve currency. And that is exactly what Kevin Warsh wants.
Steve Forbes' point about the yield curve problems is a good point. I mean, you got the 91-day bill is 370. And the 2-year note is 389, the 5-year note is 4, and the 10-year is all the way up to 438. It's almost 440. I mean, bonds sold off this week. Everything sold off. Stocks sold off. Bonds sold off as soon as Powell got up there and had one of his patented press conferences. You can blame it on Iran, but I don't know. I mean, I think Powell had a lot to do. When Powell said he was going to be chairman pro tem, the Dow Jones went off over 300 points. I mean, it's just uncalled for, undermining Fed traditions and independence and all of that.
One other thing, Larry, about something that Steve Forbes said and you said that's so correct, and it really is at the tip of the spear of this what could turn into a crisis if Powell tries to stay, which is this love affair between Jerome Powell and the media. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
They just adore, and the only reason they like him so much is because he sticks his finger in Trump's eye all the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, Tim Moraes, the chief Wall Street Journal, he just has this.
He loves Powell.
Right. He's got this, Jay Powell is Superman, or Jay Powell is a martyr. Jay Powell is Jesus Christ. You just don't understand, Larry. He's really a Christ-like figure. No, he's not.
No, Jerome he's like an 18-year-old with a crush on a girl.
Yeah, that's right. No, it's a man crush.
Jerome Powell's going to learn what the Ayatollahs learned. You don't cross this president like that.
I know. I love this. I love the Maduro, the Maduro ground up. You're going to have to send the Marines in to the Federal Reserve building and haul him out of the men's room to get him, which is right now barricaded so he can be the chairman pro tem. I don't even know what that means, pro tem. I mean, what a stupid story this is. Honest to God. Let's start a conversation that's more important. Steve Forbes, a War Department request for $200 billion. They're going to need the money because the fight's got to go on. This is going to be the next big fight over the war. The Democrats are going to oppose it because they're the anti-war party. Republicans are going to support it, I presume. And they're going to have to use a reconciliation bill to get it through.
That's right. And I think when the president does that nationwide address behind a desk very calmly, I think public opinion is going to swing roundly behind the president and the need to complete a job that should have been done years ago. Now it's being done. And he should make it clear that the only thing we're going to accept is regime change. These people have to go, and their behaviors, he's pointed out, but he's got to do it to the nation in a calm address. These people were misbehaving after we bombed them in June, took out much of their nuclear capability. They're back to making missiles again, trying to make nuclear bombs again. So these guys have got to go, and we should make it clear there's going to be regime change. And
have
by
you
the
talked
way,
to them?
The Israelis are working to remove the local police, the regime enforcers, block by block. So the job will get done, and we shouldn't get this thing, is it going to be 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks?
Yeah.
The key thing is it's going to be done, however long and hard it takes, and the American people will support them on that.
By the way, it's the Israelis who would probably be better equipped to take out Jay Powell if you take a look at what they're doing in Iran. So I like that a lot. In terms of the Oval Office speech or whatever, you should talk to him, Steve Forbes. Seriously, I'm quite serious. You know him. He knows you. You should make the case. I don't think he's going to. I don't think he's going to do it. I could be wrong. I think he will do it later. But
the key thing is on that.
It's going to be a big
people
fight.
People have a context. People would have a context for the news, so they don't get upset. Oh, it's all going to gas going to go to $10 a barrel. They know what we're doing. They know we have to do it. There's going to be some surprises along the way, but it has to be done, and they'll cut the president the slack to do it. We've always done it in the past. They'll do it again now, and the Democrats are going to be left high and dry.
Yeah, Dems are going to really embarrass themselves over this Pentagon funding business, Liz. I mean, it's going to be ugly, actually. They will make the case that none of this was necessary. They will make the case that it's a forever war. All the cliches which are being rejected, I think, by voters, judging from a lot of these new polls coming out. But it's going to be embarrassing. They're going to try to defund the Pentagon in the middle of a war. Oh my God.
Yeah, and I think actually a reconciliation bill would be actually quite a good thing because it would give you an opportunity to also move forward on other things that are important to the administration. And Larry, we've talked about the necessity of a reconciliation bill over and over again, and there has not seemed to be much energy for it in Congress. I think that's a huge mistake. Think of all the other things that we're trying to defund or fund that haven't gotten any traction. If you begin to put together a reconciliation bill, and this is the keystone, the key element of it, I think Democrats are going to be, as you say, embarrassed if they don't tag along. So, I mean, I'd love to see things like the census change, and maybe you can make that into a reconciliation bill. Obviously, the Senate parliamentarians can have a lot to say about what can go in there. But the idea that Democrat states continue to have as many House seats as they have because they count illegals in California in the census, I think that is so entirely wrong. And I think Americans think it's wrong, too. Also, voting changes. The SAVE Act is going to require some money to make some changes. So let's put that in the
That's the point I made. Oh, I love that. I made that point starting yesterday, made it on the show yesterday, and we had Rick Scott on today. I made the same point. You know what? It requires money to monitor the national election so it's legal. Just like it required money to close the border. And they put money in the One Big Beautiful Bill, and it worked. And I think you could do the same thing. And, look, you can go after the fraud in California and Minneapolis and so forth, put that in the bill, too. Mike Johnson, Speaker Johnson, is there. He's talking reconciliation. And Jody Arrington is also, but so far not a peep out of the senators. And that's why I really talked to Rick Scott about it today. They've got to get moving on this right away. They've got to help Hegseth, help Trump, help the war. Come on, let's get going. Democrats will kill themselves in opposition to it. You can't. It's about the men and women in the services. You've got to give them the best because they're giving you the best. All right, we're going to take a break. Liz Peek, Fox News. Steve Forbes, chairman and editor-in-chief of Forbes Media. Steve Forbes, WABC radio host of More Money, coming up right after this show on most of these same radio stations. We'll be right back.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we're talking with Liz Peek and Steve Forbes and Steve Moore, and I want to go to Steve Moore. If you're there, Steve, these taxes in the state of Washington, the city of Seattle, and elsewhere are going to ruin professional sports, or they're going to cause a big shift in professional. Free agents won't want to. If I get this right, free agents won't want to be in Seattle. 9.9%. And this is a millionaire's tax on top of that. The combined rate, if you live and work in Seattle, would be 18%. That's worse than New York City.
Yeah, it's a tragedy. I mean, Washington State was one of the few blue states that works in this country because they were one of the 9 states that don't have an income tax, and the progressives. By the way, that's the reason you have great companies like Amazon. You had companies like Starbucks and Microsoft that were started in the Seattle area because they don't have an income tax. And now these fools, these lunatics in the legislature are going to give Washington State their first income tax ever. There is going to I'm going to make a prediction. Within 5 to 10 years, Microsoft will be out of Washington, and Amazon will be out of Washington, and Starbucks will be out of Washington, and there won't be any millionaires left to tax there. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, well, Howard Schultz is leaving or has left Washington. Sacramento, the same thing, a non-resident tax on visiting athletes and performers based on the number of duty days. I mean, no free agent's going to want to work in these high-tax states. So you're going to change the whole scope, whether it's baseball or football or hockey or whatever, right? I mean,
the Mariners and the Seahawks will never win another championship again.
Right. No, that's right. They got a good hockey team in there too. Krakens, that's what it's called. I mean, Steve Forbes. This is just an odd story. The Yankees. Look at the Yankees. How do the Yankees attract all their talent? How do the Mets attract all their talent? You have to pay them more and more, but they're taxed more and more. If she raises the tax, if Hochul raises the tax.
Oh yes, and Steve makes a very good point about the state of Washington. Why they're undoing the one thing that keeps that state going is preposterous. And you mentioned Howard Schultz has already moved to Florida.
Yeah,
he founded Starbucks in Seattle decades ago. And the contrast, and the Republicans should make this point, good thing about our federalism, the contrast between red states and blue states on taxation and the Unleash Prosperity newsletter that Steve does each day makes this point. One is cutting taxes, the other is raising taxes. The blues are having budget problems. The red states are getting people. The blue states are losing people. The red states are getting new businesses. The blue states are driving them out. You'd think that the lesson would be learned, and I hope in New York State, where they have a governor's election coming up, the Republican candidate Bruce Blakeman has the wherewithal to get that message out to New York State. The Democrats are ruining you, and that once upon a time, I guess you can't use it today because of it. You can't use the word, but empire state. New York was a true empire state, and now they're the puny state. And the voters have to wake up and turn it around. If you get a Republican governor in New York, by golly, that would send a message around the world. And by the way, it won't happen, but two Republicans could end up in that crazy primary system they have in California as the candidates for governor.
By the way, Blakeman is a genuine supply-sider. He's absolutely 100% on that. Liz, I'm sorry we didn't go to you on the sports thing, but
that's okay.
Maybe.
That's okay. I mean, I think Washington's just doing what New York and so many others do. They just don't learn. They understand it, but they're ideologically in cement.
In cement. Liz Peek, Steve Forbes, Steve Morris. Show's coming up after this show on most of these stations. Thanks to all of you folks. I'm Larry Kudlow. Be back next weekend.
Thanks for listening to The Larry Kudlow Show. You can hear The Larry Kudlow Show Saturday mornings at 10. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?